Solve an equation and inequality graphically. The graph is given. Use it to find the solution to x to the fourth minus 3x to the third minus x squared plus 3x equal to 0. Okay, the solution of this equation, when we're talking about equal to 0 here, we're talking about where the graph crosses the x-axis. So according to the graph that we're given here, the graph crosses the x-axis when x equal to negative 1, x equal to 0, 1, and 3. Okay, so in part A, x equal to negative 1, x equal to 0, x equal 1, and x equal 3. Now in the next part, we're talking about where is the graph less than or equal to 0. So where is this equation less than or equal to 0? And again, when we look at this graph, we divide the graph in two sections. Everything that's above the x-axis is positive. Everything is below the x-axis is negative. So the negative portion of this graph is here. Everything that's less than, right? Then that is below the x-axis. And so how do we describe that portion? So on the number line of the x-axis, we can see that we have this point, negative 1, 0, 1, to 3. So these are the interval that is less than, where the graph is less than 0. So in part B, we have, because this is a less than or equal, we include in the endpoint. So negative 1 to 0 union with 1 to 3. The graph, the equation is less than or equal 0 in this interval. So next one, we want to solve the equation both algebraically and graphically. So algebraically, we solve this equation like how we have been always doing. So let's start. X minus 4 equals 5x plus 12. And if we want to do this by graphically, let's split this equation in two. Okay, and let's call this equation, let's call this first part is the function f of x equal to x minus 4. And the second equation is the function g of x equal 5x plus 12. Now, these two functions equal to each other when it's intersect. So we're talking about the solution is the intersect of f of x and g of x. And how do we find that graphing? So let's use our calculator. Y equal x minus 4 and the other one is 5x plus 12, and we go ahead and click graph. So we see there's this intersection here, right? But we don't know what that is. So what we do is to use the calculation portion of the calculator to do that. So second to get to calculate, and we want to find the intersect. So let's move this dot to our first curve, and our second curve is this one. So the intersection here is when x equals -4. So let's go ahead and try the next problem. Solve the equation both algebraically and graphically. So x squared minus 4x plus 6 equal to 0. This equation is not factorable, so we will solve this using quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is x equal to -b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. So x equals 4 plus or minus square root of 4 squared -4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 6 divided by 2. So an equation here have no solution would mean the graph of this equation does not cross the x-axis. So let's take a look at the graph itself. Let's clear that. And let's put in our equation. X squared minus 4x plus 6. And go ahead and graph. So as you can see on the graph, our graph does not cross the x-axis. So therefore there is no solution. So let's say you want to solve this inequality by graphing. Okay. So you look at two different graphs. So let's call the first graph is f of x equal to x squared and g of x is equal to 3x plus 10. So we're looking for the portion where f of x is less than or equal to g of x. Okay. The first thing first, we need to find the intersection of the graph. So first, to find the intersection, and we do this by graphing. So start with the graph x squared. And the next one is 3x plus 10. And we will find the intersection. So look like this line will be intersect the graph at 2 points. So let's zoom it in a little. Excuse me, zoom out a little, so that we can see it a little better. So there is two intersections. So let's start with our first curve. So second, calculate, and we want to find the intersect. So the first curve and the second curve. So our first intersection is x equal to -2. And let's take a look at the next intersection. Okay. Let's trace over, so that two parts of the curve, one, and let's move that up. And then we get the other intersection, that is x equals 5. And then we will write up the inequality. So we find the interval. That satisfies the inequality. So we're looking for the portion of the graph where x squared is less than 3x plus 10. So everything below the line. Okay, so everything below the line. Okay, so let's recreate this graph a little. So we have something kind of look like this. And the intersection is here, x equal to -2 and 5. And this is not to scale. We're looking at the portion where x squared is less than 3x plus 10 when we're looking for the section that the parabola is fall beneath the line. Okay. So this portion. So as you can see here, the parabola is fall beneath the line in the interval from -2 to 5. Okay. And we including the endpoint here since we have a less than or equal. In the next problem, we want to graph the equation for x that is in between 0 and 100, and we want to know how high up do you have to be to able to see 100 mile. Excuse me, you want to see how high up do you have to be to able to see 10 mile. So let's start with the graph, and we want that x is in between 0 and 100. So let's enter this equation. And careful of order operation. Okay. And let's take a look at the graph. Okay. We can't see very well here, but we know this is a square root graph. And so let's take a look at our setting. And we want our window start with x minimum is 0 and max here, and we want to go up to 100. So let's make the scale reasonable 10. Okay, and let's go ahead and graph this. So this is the graph, gonna look like this. Okay, so how high up do you have to be in order to see 10 mile? So this is, in order to see 10 mile, let's set this equation equal to 10. And so to have this to be 10 mile, we can set the first equation f of x equal to 1.5x plus 1 over 5,280 square, and the second equation equal 10, and we want to find the intersection. So let's take a look at our graph and we'll find the intersection. And our second graph here is when it equal to 10. So let's fix our window a little bit to make it look clear. Let's make our y max to be 15. And we want to find this intersection. So again, second, calculate, intersect. So in order to see up to 10 miles, okay, you need to be at least 66.67 feet high.